One round away, and the fight is over. 14-12 to 9 in a row.
FNATIC had an extremely unique strategy that no other teams used in lock-in. This strategy was to only buy half armor on the majority of gun rounds, even on rounds when they could afford full armor. This was brought up a couple times by multiple analysts and coaches, but I have the inside scoop. I went to school with the guy who did the research, and his name is Jay. He previously worked with NRG doing data work for their old Valorant roster, and he gave me some of the data that he looked at for half armor buys. I also took a look at the data from lock-in myself to really see how much of an impact this strategy had on FNATIC's tournament run. And the results are astounding, so make sure to stay tuned until the end. First, let's talk about the strategy and see it in action before getting to the data behind it. Here's an example from the finals of lock-in. In this round on Lotus at 8-11, 4 out of 5 players on FNATIC can afford full armor, but choose to go with half armor anyway. They lose this round, but are able to buy rifles again in the next round with half armor. If they had bought full armor and lost, they would have had to eco in the final round. This is the basis of the strategy. FNATIC are calling that full armor does not significantly increase their chances to win, since getting headshot with a Phantom means you're probably dead anyway. Here's Boaster explaining the reasoning behind it in a stream after the event.
Half shields, I'll give you a short form. Half shield means that you don't have to eco as much, which means you get more buys. And in theory, if someone's shooting at you with a Phantom, you're most likely dead if they headshot you anyway. There we go. So that's why we do half buys.
So you're able to have less ecos overall and potentially stronger ecos, which is especially impactful in the Stinger meta. Hero rifles are more often affordable, and it doesn't hurt to have more of those when you have Durka on your team. Now you're obviously gonna say, well, if FNATIC had won that round with full armor, they would have never had to eco. And that's exactly where the data can help us. This graph shows the average cost of loadouts and their corresponding win percentages against full buys, which are defined as any loadout costing more than 4,000 across the team. For example, these bars show that spending 2,000 to 2,500 wins against full buys around 30% of the time. This white line shows the rough error of the projection based on factors like sample size. That means that, for example here, although Classic is an OP gun, teams are not winning 25% of rounds against full buys with Classics. It just means that there clearly wasn't enough data to make a good statistical conclusion. Based on this analysis, we can see that half armor buys in the 3,500 to 4,000 range wins against full buys 49% of the time. This shows that there is no significant difference between half armor buys compared to full buys. Going back to the Lotus example, this means that FNATIC are choosing to play 2 guaranteed rounds at a similar win rate to a full buy compared to 1 full buy and a potentially much worse eco at 10 to 20% win rate if they lose. Although there are a lot of considerations for data research like this that can amount to bias, such as utility costs or agent composition, this research at least proves there's some basis to the strategy. So let's take a look at the lock-in data ourselves to see how much FNATIC really took advantage of this strategy. Looking at the data from lock-in, the average percent of gun rounds played across all teams at lock-in is 64.2%. FNATIC, in comparison, played 71.9% of all their rounds as gun rounds. That means they're playing 7.7% more gun rounds than the average team. This amounts to 1.5 to 1.8 more gun rounds in a game between 20 and 23 rounds. Here are the rest of the top 4 teams and their percent of gun rounds played for comparison. Okay, so who cares? They're playing more gun rounds. We can't get over the fact that they're weaker buys. Now remember this graph that shows the win percentages of different loadout values? Now looking at the data from lock-in, I calculated that the win rate of half armor buys against full buys this tournament was 46.4%. Not as high as the data from Jay's research, probably due to a lot of different factors, bias included, but certainly high enough for the strategy to be meaningful. Remember that FNATIC are not only getting more gun rounds, they're avoiding more low win rate ecos at the same time. But the one thing we can't overcome with data is knowing FNATIC was the most dominant team at the tournament. They won the whole thing. It's pretty hard to say exactly how much the economic strategy helped them because of that. And to that, I present this final case. In the last map on Icebox, at an even 12-12 scoreline, FNATIC had played 18 gun rounds while Loud had only played 15. When a game is this close, one extra gun round can make a massive difference, and in this case, FNATIC got 3. Furthermore, if we look at all the rounds in regulation that Loud bought full armor, there were only a couple cases where full armor actually mattered for Loud. What I mean by this is that in the 24 rounds of regulation, there were only a few instances where anyone on Loud survived with 25 HP, which is what full armor would have changed. This means Loud could have also played more gun rounds in this game if they had used this half armor strategy, and it wouldn't have significantly affected their round outcomes, as the data shows.
FNATIC normally are unassailable on their defense side. Sometimes their attacks don't look in the round. I mean, Leo had a bulldog as well, but the opener is ludicrous. The kill on Sadak is pretty clean too.
Although there are clearly many factors contributing towards FNATIC's victory, this scenario proves that the strategy made a difference this tournament. 3 more gun rounds and 3 ecos avoided in a 12-12 overtime is an advantage we can't ignore. We can all imagine how differently history might have gone if FNATIC did not use this strategy. Now I know what you're all thinking. I'm gonna buy half armor and dominate rank. Pause. This strategy works in pro play since everyone's aim is closer to ideal than my insta-lock jet. Teams in pro play are not yet full buying phantoms and prioritizing shotguns, SMGs, or the Guardian, which are more effective against half armor. In ranked, however, players below and including Plat buy the Spectre 10% of rounds. In Immortal and Radiant, it's half of that, so ultimately it's up to you to decide for yourself. Jay recommends you collect your own data and see how many times you live with more than 25 HP, and if it happens often enough, the strat may be something you can try. Just make sure your team is on the same page so you can match up your buy rounds properly. So instead of forcing half armor every round and terrorizing your teammates, like the video and subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment for what kind of pro Valorant content you want to see next, and as always, thanks for watching.